So I watched Deadly Class, a TV show that came on 2018 and recently just arrived on Netflix. And oh by golly, is this show ever an absolute treat. I would very much suggest this show. This show is interesting, weird, if you happen to like anime or even just kind of absurdist ideas made reality, kind of like Avengers and stuff like that, or even like things like the John Wick movies. If you like things like, again, like anime premises that are kind of insane but somehow work. And this show, to me, like a good sell of it is like, this is like the anime mentality of ideas and insaneness actually work though. Like there's a lot of anime live action things that are mess, but this one actually feels legit, and it's not that. It's not an anime based anything, I don't think. Maybe a comic book, but yeah. But yes, Deadly Classroom, what is this show about? The show is about a school made for assassins, specifically a school aimed at people who have a proclivity for things like killing people, essentially, and then having the ability to even do that and still remain somewhat present and not like a monster, not be destroyed by grief, those kinds of things. So basically, a person who has a proclivity for assassination, I guess, or murder in a darker sense. Now, everybody at this school is kind of in some ways broken or have a pretty horrible past that made them, you know, have access to the school, that made them unfortunately have to take a life, or somehow fortunately. Sometimes there's horrible people in the world, and it's either you or them, and hopefully it's not you. The plot focuses around a homeless boy that is seen as a serial killer because he burned down his whole orphanage. Now, this school hears about this psychotic, like, talented person who's in this special field of murder, so then they go to enlist him into their school, essentially. Now, long story short, this boy he's been growing up on the streets, he's been in the orphanage, and this orphanage has just kicked the shit out of him and like broken him almost. This very broken main character gets accepted into this school. He agrees, and thus the plot line of Deadly Class begins. A pretty boy, scarred-faced main character going into this school environment where he's going to learn how to be an assassin, a very, very good, deadly assassin. Working for this school is also this organization that kind of runs everything and all that stuff. There is hierarchy in this school, so again, maybe it's just me, but like anime, school, main dude protagonist goes into school, main dude protagonist has a proclivity for all of the skills needed for this school. It's kind of like a darker version of Assassination Classroom, which is also an amazing anime. It's significantly less wholesome, this show, but it's still very good. Needless to say, that's the premise for Deadly Class. What makes this show good, without spoiling too much? This show's style, art direction, filming, everything looks awesome. Like the characters look badass and wicked. There's like style everywhere. If you guys have ever seen, like, it has kind of the Umbrella Academy atmosphere with like maybe some more grunge and like dirt in it, but it kind of has that same atmosphere, and it makes use of this kind of comic book style, pivoting back and forth between these things. It's a show that just is like bleeding style, pun intended, but there's also it's a little dark. It's not afraid to be like, hey, the themes of the show is making somebody a deadly being, I guess. So they talk about like warfare. And again, this is to me like the best parts of the show. But there is a like creepy but also kind of awesome scientist guy who's like teaching them about poison and like bombs and all these horrible things because that's the whole point of the school, is to make these deadly warriors. And then there's also their like psychology teacher is like a straight up serial killer, like just a horrible fucking creep, Hannibal Lecter type in a chair strapped down, and he's teaching them about like the flawed human mind and where pain comes from, and all of these things. And the acting in the show to me is really, really good. The characters are like really well done in terms of like typecasting them. To like they rock the role of like this Yakuza girl, looks fucking badass, rad, and embodies that, and all of those things. But anyways, there's plenty of instances, and I think that's where the show is at its absolute best, when it is like a brand new, refreshing take on everything, is when it starts to do the John Wick thing of like building an amazing world and like an interesting world where your characters can interface with the insanity of the world and kind of develop over time. We'll get into the last 3 episodes probably at the end, but anyways. Point being is there's one more thing I want to talk to you guys about. I'm trying to keep it spoiler free roughly for right now. One thing that's important though is that the main character, his main goal is to kill Ronald Reagan, because he kind of had an act in, or out of the consequences of one of his choices, his parents got killed. And that's kind of the thing that fuels him, and we'll talk about that more towards the end. But that's kind of the overarching premise. That's what our main character's like motive is in becoming this deadly warrior or whatever. Anyways, so one thing I would be remiss to not talk about is, unfortunately, but maybe there's hope, but unfortunately this show came out in 2018. By the way, this show, I did not in any way piece together that this was an older show. Yeah, this show feels super fresh, feels like it could come out tomorrow and be like, yeah, this is like a really cool, refreshing show. It's art style, it's filming, its premise, its ideas, everything is crisp. Like, it's not like you can feel a slight age on it, you know what I mean? Anyways, but unfortunately, there is no season 2 of the show. But Netflix recently got it, and of course, everyone's like, please, please, the show is so good. And now, I didn't know the show existed at all, by the way, at all. And it's like, came out 2018. It's been like 4 years. I didn't hear anything, and this show is amazing. But its ending is a little rough, and I want to talk to you guys about that specifically. I can understand why I liked it, but at the end, maybe pivoted away from it, and we'll talk about that towards the end. But anyways, point being, is that this show, there is like many petitions going on right now for people saying, please, for the love of God, Netflix, bring back the show. Give it a season 2. You've just got the licensing of it. This is such a cool idea of a show. The art, the atmosphere, the merging of design. It kind of very much feels like it's up your alley too. It very much feels like a grungier, more punk rock version of Umbrella Academy, without the powers, and instead like assassin orders, like John Wick's kind of whole shebang kind of thing, which is super fun. Also, the actors are really good. The ideas are fun and interesting. For the most part. I really want to talk about the ending. But anyways, so there is a slight hope that maybe in the future Netflix will bring Deadly Class Season 2 onto their platform. There's a chance, if people like it enough, talk about it enough, maybe even tweet Netflix over on Twitter if you do want a Season 2 to do stuff like that. From my understanding, I think all of the cast is up for wanting to make a Season 2, and there's plenty of, I'm not sure if it's based off of a book, but I read somewhere that
it's a comic book with plenty of source material.
So there is potential for a Season 2 more now than ever, which right now it's 2022. There's a better chance for it now because Netflix bought it. And I definitely think it's something that Netflix could advertise, and it could be huge. But alas, ladies and gentlemen, I would love a Season 2. It also ended on a cliffhanger, which is a little annoying, so we desperately want a Season 2. But yes, please, please, please go check it out. If you don't get hooked in the first 2 episodes, they're also pretty big episodes. There's 12 episodes, or 10 episodes, I think. They're all like 44 minutes a piece. A lot of show. There's no like weird long intro or anything like that. You'll be good, off to the races. Again, the premise is very much this John Wick atmosphere, or world, with the atmosphere of like Umbrella Academy, with some comic book flair thrown in. But now I'm just going to start talking spoiler land, kind of, about the things I enjoyed about the series so much. And then, I really want you guys to, I want you guys to take on this, because I want to know what you guys think about episode 6 onward, I suppose. And maybe hear me out before you reply. But for right now, let's stay on the positive note. Let me get some coffee, because I'm about to go off. This show is so refreshing. The main character is actually like a pretty endearing main character, and also I've never seen that idea done as well as it did, as well as it was done in the first couple episodes, which was, here's this main character, and he's actually kind of awesome. He actually has a proclivity for the environment that he's in. He may not have the most like enjoyment for the action that he's talented in, but he is unarguably talented in this way of knowing what battles to fight, knowing what to avoid, having street smarts, knowing how, like, what the right buttons are to push to like get through someone, etc. Knowing how to be fearless when he needs to be fearless, knowing how to be scared when he needs to be scared. They're just these really cool moments that actually develop this character and make him like, oh, you're gonna be like a fucking demon assassin. Like you're made for this. Like your whole thing is just queuing up this. And then you have like other supporting characters that are interesting. Like one of the main characters in this assassination school is a pacifist. He hates violence, and his whole thing is about like building up this persona that makes it so that he doesn't have to actually be a mean person. He just kind of has to posture so that no negative stuff actually gets to take place. And then the moments where like the character kind of embodies like the shittiest parts of himself, like where he's like, no, but also it's not even shitty, it's like kind of awesome. It's like this mixture of like, ugh, but at the same time, yeah, like fuck that guy who's like tortured you and did all these horrible things, this bum that like robbed from you and killed anybody and everyone that got in his way. And then the idea that like instead of what most shows do, which is like he hesitates, like, and that's something so refreshing from the show. The kid doesn't hesitate at all. The kid just has this thing in his head that says nope, boom, and he just ends somebody. And in so many shows where the whole premise is like, I gotta become an assassin, and then there's like these flashback moments of like, I can't do it, oh my god, I have to do it, oh, I did it, good, and it's just like, okay, like I said, yeah, sure, but we've seen it so many times. This show doesn't say none of that. It's just like, no, this character has this instance where he can do it. He can go to that place that's dark and thrive, frankly. And also there's these moments that I think are interesting conflict, I guess. Interesting conflict would be the best way I could put it, where there's this person that clearly is manipulating him. He feeds into the manipulation, and then he kind of somehow makes it alive because of his street smarts and kind of fucked up backstory of how he knows how to, like, he kind of is okay with dying in that sense, because he has really nothing to speak of right now. And those moments are really, really interesting for the main character. And again, one of the best things that I could commend the show on is the induction of empathy for characters that are incredibly flawed. By knowing their backstory. And it's even more charming because they always do it with this cool comic book kind of cartoony backdrop art style, which is just interesting because it kind of gives more weight to the emotions in the image. Whereas like acting can do a lot, but drawing and like lighting and color and like the facial expressions of horror and being able to hold on that facial expression with the drawing is just way more impactful, I think, to me at least. But on the topic of empathy, almost all of the characters eventually, like, they're kind of shitty in some ways. Like, they're awesome and they're like our people, but they're kind of shitty still. Like a lot of times they're rude, they're nihilistic as fuck. So goddamn nihilistic. They're all broken, and they're all like understandably broken, like kind of made by their unfortunate circumstance and a culmination of bad choices as well. But because they kind of explain like, this is why I'm the way that I am, this is my regrets, this is my pain, etc. You're almost like, okay, I accept the bad parts of you because frankly I'm surprised you're not even worse than from what you've been through, you know? It's almost like in showing us their backstory, they become our people rather than just bad people. They become our bad people, I guess. So you're kind of rooting for them to redeem themselves or attain freedom or achieve the thing that they so deserve to achieve, having been through the horror that they've been through, you know? Oh, but I didn't really wrap up. The main character, my favorite part about him, and I think the best part of the show, one of the best parts, I keep saying the best part, but there's so many good parts to me. But one of the best parts is the main character having a proclivity for this, and having the world react to that like proclivity, that talent, I guess the best way is to put it. This talent that is literally everybody in the school can see. And that was one of the coolest moments in episode 2, I think, when the like psychotic mustard gas creating weird vibe of like poison professor, when he was talking to him and he's like, you have the thing that this whole school was designed to make thrive. Like this desire to change the world, this hope to improve the world and take out bad people from completely destroying the world, and just like criminals being criminal and without any punishment, without anything to stop them. You were the person that this school was made to be the person that kind of tries to level the playing field to people doing bad things, but also being bad themselves in this kind of weird dirt equals dirt kind of way. And then that professor says, and that's why, because we all see that you have that, we're all gonna try to destroy you. And I don't know if he was saying that because he knows that it's impossible for you to do it, or if it's because, and this is what I think, they want him to succeed more than anything, because he is the one thing that can actually change the world. He has the same mentality, he has the same talent, he has the same instincts that would allow him to do that, which to me is when the show is at its absolute best. The show is incredible, incredible, incredible when it is doing that. When it is in the school setting and we see our main character have a talent for the unfortunate violence or understanding of how to do things that an assassin, that a very deadly individual would be good at. Seeing him have a talent for it, seeing him develop it, seeing him move forward with it. And also engaging with those, like, the lessons and the world around him and how his talent can kind of help his friends progress as well. And maybe not be at the same level, but still help them through their encounters and help them kind of sort out their pain. Kind of as the overarching theme of this guy being the kind of unfortunate shadow that can rid the world of all the other shitty shadows, even though the world may not thank him for it, you know? So needless to say, this show is fantastic, and I think it is in its absolute stride when it's doing its school stuff, and you can feel the characters progressing and even growing closer together because of, like, actual things that they do to help one another, that they stick their neck out for one another. And that's the best part about the main character as well, just on a personality wise, is his one thing is that he hates being alone. He doesn't want to be like have nobody in the world, because he had that for such a long time, to where he basically cherishes people probably way more than they cherish him. And he goes out of his way to stick his neck out to make sure that they're okay. And especially in the first couple episodes, he starts making, like, actually really good friendships. He actually starts, like, the people start depending on him, and he starts doing really, really well. And that's awesome. Again, if I could, I'll talk about it probably after we talk about the things that I didn't enjoy so much about the series. And I really, really like this series. So even though I'm going to criticize some things, I need you guys to know, keep in mind, I think this show is awesome. I want more of it. But the last, around episode 6 or 7 onwards, to me is when the show started to get real CW bullshit, conflict for conflict's sake, and it started completely throwing away the whole reason why it was so fucking iconic and unique. I still love it. I still love it. But to me, I just started noticing and it made me really frustrated the whole time watching it, where the main character had a talent for all of this. That got thrown away. Like, he kind of just, like, passively, like, there was 2 comments about, like, every now and again, he's like, yeah, he used his environment to, like, strangle me, and that got me. But that was it. That was it. It wasn't like they further developed that. And they never developed him actually being able to fight, or, like, having some sort of, like, one-on-one with the teacher and fighting. They never had any instance where he had a moment where he had to get stronger, where he had to be like, okay, no, I need to become more deadly, because I can't protect my family without being that. Instead, he kind of just like, I don't know, dude, I'm kind of just, I love you guys, you're my and then he fucking fumbles everywhere, and you're like, where the fuck was the guy who grew up on the streets, who was, like, dominating, essentially, in the school, and, like, really knew, even though the whole world was against him, he was doing a fucking damn good job about surviving, and pacing things out, and making sure he was able to stay alive. And instead of, like, developing that and making it so that he actually, like, his teachers started to, like, hey, you're a rat, because there's a hierarchy in the school. You're like a rat, but you have a proclivity to this. I want you to survive, but I also want you to basically thrive. And the way that I'm going to do that is by pushing you, but also training you at the same time, so that you can handle the pressure that's going to be pushed upon you. None of that happened. None of that happened at all. But yet it kind of happened. It's almost like there's a book about the show. I don't know too much about that. I might look into this, but I think there might be a book or a comic book or something where it very much feels like that would be where the book was on its thing. But it feels like around the 6th episode, like a producer came in and said, I know how to make this show better. A crazy love triangle, and also a shit ton of pointless death that kind of makes everything kind of feel a bit numb. Because things just keep, like, so essentially there's this, the best way I can put it is this. We have a character is to go to A to B. I want to basically kill Ronald Reagan. That's his whole thing. So he joins a school. I want to kill Reagan. That's my purpose in life. Along the way, he finds friends, and he finds, like, kind of meaning in that, and he finds a success in the fact that he is has talented all this stuff. Okay, boom. There's 2 threads: the school talent, killing Ronald Reagan, maybe even friends. Okay. And now we have this underlying thread that they kind of teased out at the very beginning, where they said, no, the main character didn't destroy the orphanage. He's not this horrible serial killer. It's his actual roommate that fucking scarred him to shit, potentially raped him or something, or maybe that was the guards. The show doesn't hold back on like suffering and how much horror there is in the world. Anyways, the main character's been through a lot of bullshit, but the main antagonist is not Reagan anymore or anything like that, but it's this bully that tortured him for years. Okay, so now we have kill Reagan, friends, school, and now we have his brother, or his not brother, his roommate that tortured him. So now you're like, okay, now there's these fun things that we can engage with. Okay, we got friends, we got the school, and then we got his brother, which is going to be the overarching thread underneath the entire show. Around episode 6, they add 7 other threads that complicate and just interweave within everything, and it becomes super messy to the point where you're just kind of like, why? First of all, why is the character choosing to do these things? I have no idea. Why is he so stupid all of a sudden? He was actually making really smart, clever choices that facilitated why he was making those choices because of his background. And then then whatever number we're at, there was too much to even manage. Like, it was like there's 5 storylines happening all at once, and none of them really felt like they like worked up to being able to be unraveled. It's either they ran out of time, or I think a producer decided like, no, we need more conflict. And also, hey, see Game of Thrones over there, who just like killing characters for no reason just because it's for shock value? Let's do that as well. And you're kind of like, what? Like the show to me was in its absolute stride when Chico was kind of the, like, it was really simple. The main character has his roommate that's trying to like do something, but even surprisingly, his roommate doesn't actually want to kill him outright. Regardless, the main character also has this, he's trying to help his friends. Hey, that makes sense, right? And he has this other variable called Chico, which is a part of the friend group almost, and a part of the kind of general, like, unit. Okay, now there's this conflict between the main character, him. Okay, that's cool. And now we also have the school. So now, like, we also have this thing where, like, he's training, he's becoming better. That's all awesome. They could have just kept going with a lot of that for a good bit. Instead, they just randomly fucking sliced Chico's throat in a really weird way. And there's kind of like, I don't even know if Chico was gonna kill him, because Chico's just sitting there fucking talking his ass off. Anyways, also, another thing, and this is to me, honestly, it's probably my biggest pet peeve in the whole show. It's one of the things that made me feel like, come on, man, what are we doing? But it's the conflict, and again, there's like, my whole problem with the last couple episodes is just conflict for the sake of conflict, with more conflict, with like 6 different threads trying to be like unraveled and unweaved, but I don't care about any of them at this point. I care more about like the Chico conflict thread, I guess. And I like the idea of like the school principal actually being a flawed human being that lied, but for a good reason, and all that. Like those were all good, but then they just kind of like everything got messy really fast. Anyways, the biggest thing that I thought was just really frustrating was the main character is making actually like really smart choices at the beginning. He's trying to survive basically. So he has these 2 people. One of these girls is like the Yakuza girl who has her own kind of backstory, but she seems to stick her neck out for him. But she also has like reasons to do that. But it's still like something. Like clearly she's going out of her way to help, right? But then there's this other girl who has this like weird conflict attached to like this mob syndicate and all these things. And she's clearly suffering and in pain and all these things. So the main character is, when he first gets to school, is actually making pretty good choices where he gets manipulated, but he doesn't like completely burn the bridge because he has nobody. So he needs to be careful. So then he starts being smart and he's like, okay, you know what? I forgive you, whatever. And he moves on. And that person kind of becomes like a weird surrogate ally within the underlying thing of the story. Simultaneously, this Japanese badass, Yakuza kind of person is awesome, and she's also like putting her neck out there, and they clearly mix and match much better. Like they seem like the actual team, whereas the one girl seems like she's kind of needing something from him in a way, whereas the other girl's like, no, I'm equal to you, and I'm building you up, basically. But also, you're a fuck up. And my whole life's complicated, so leave me alone. And to me, I thought it was interesting having this kind of like underlying rivalry between the two heroines, I guess. But after he comes back from Vegas, that Vegas trip with Chico dead, it just becomes like the classic CW conflict for the sake of conflict, where the main character just making stupid ass choices, like where they make no sense. And what do you call it? Like both girls are also making stupid choices. Like you're fucking smart, like clever people. Like the whole time you were smart, you dealt with a fucking psycho who was manipulative and horrible the whole time. The other girl dealt with like knowing how to keep people at a distance and knowing how to do all these things. So they were both clever, and the main character was clever, but for some reason they just become idiots, and they just become like, yeah, let me just put everything away, let me try to like befriend everybody, let me take things personally. And of course there's like a variable that they try to add where like Chica's essentially bipolar. So then that makes everything like make sense about how she's just being completely unreasonable and chaotic, despite, again, the main character is not an idiot. Like to me, this whole arc would have made sense if the main character said, okay, I need to completely like black out the badass Ronin girl because I can't deal with that right now, and I need to get this girl eating some sort of food. And that could have been a cool moment to show how fucked the main character's perception is for doing what needs to be done, and maybe hurting or lying to people for their sake, essentially, which you could argue is for better or worse. But he could have been like, no, here's this special drink I made for you, and he crushed her like pills in the drink and gave it to her just so that she could stabilize enough to where she could actually understand it. Because maybe he paid attention in the psychology class where no one did, and knew that people who are unmedicated can't make choices for their betterment because their brain's in disorder, essentially. So if you can medicate them, and now they're seeing things more clearly, now it's easier to have them maintain on the thing, the pills or whatnot. And that could have been a really cool moment to like see this character's talented at what he does. It's kind of fucked up that he lied and he's kind of being a slight bit manipulative, but it's nothing. A net positive did take place. And if that was the concurrent thing, and maybe eventually his friends see that, like, yeah, this guy can lie and this guy can be a little bit two-faced at times, but sure as shit, he's the person that, like, if we bet on him, it all works out. And that to me could be a really interesting, like, deadly person, a deadly class. But instead it kind of becomes this like CW, I say that as like, just, I don't know, to me there's always like a Riverdale, and that's what I'm also a little worried with. That's my one hope, that if Netflix does pick this up, they don't do a Sabrina or Riverdale where they're like, here's a bunch of like romantic conflict constantly, and we're just watching people make the worst life choices of their life, just being like, but what if I make a commitment but then I don't show up because, I don't know, I'm a moron. And you're like, what? You literally know how important all of these are. You've tried. A great point. The main character goes out of his way to lockpick in like a quarantine situation just to go to Chica, because he's like, I need to save this chick. She's been through a lot. I want to bet on her. So he literally like breaks out of the quarantine thing in the show. He goes to her, he gets captured, he kind of gets tortured, and then he has a moment where he could be like, hey, maybe if I was willing to get my fucking face kicked in and all this bullshit, and I see this person clearly suffering who apparently matters to me in some way, maybe I should go talk to them. Maybe I was literally about to do this. I was literally about to get my ass handed to me and go get super inconvenienced. But no, in this one instance where everything matters, I'm just a moron. I'm just gonna say nope and go fuck off over here. It made no sense, especially for like the character is supposed to be like nihilistic, but very like honest, like very like, hey, the world's flawed. I don't know how to fix anything. Everything seems shitty. You know, I'm also like, I relive the same happy memories that I have so much, but it also makes me sad. It makes me feel distant. Like, he clearly is introspective enough to know what the fuck he's doing, but just completely gets chucked out the window, all sense and reason. So To me, I loved the show. I do. I know I may be shitting on it right now, but I got so disheartened when the show stopped doing the things that made it iconic, unique, something that I could say like, this is a show that you should absolutely watch. That's interesting, that's fun, that's like shows you flawed characters and makes you like love the shit out of them, or makes you feel like, yeah, these are our fucking characters. And again, like one of the things that also frustrated me is at the very end, again, like the show could, I don't know, I partially hope, I don't know, I was gonna say I partially hope a Netflix reboots a part of it, but anyways, like to me, it would have been cool seeing the main character, like if I were to tidy up the show and make it to where I would love it, but who's to say that, like maybe you guys loved the ending, you guys loved the drama of the back and forth shitty choices made by the main character that kind of came out of left field. Maybe you loved all that, which is fine. I shouldn't have even said that. Maybe you just like the story and I don't. That's a better way to phrase it. But to me, if I were to clean up the story and make everything like make me happy with it, I would have loved to see them like drop a lot of the points, like put the principal family dynamic drama in the background, but save it for season 2. Something. Maybe even hint at it at season 1, where like season 1, the ending, there's a final scene where the sister knows about the daughter. Okay, perfect. Now there's conflict. We can't wait to see what the hell that happens. We want this like leader, principal, assassin. We want to see what happens with him. We're gonna leave that as like a breadcrumb to follow in the future. Okay. I would have loved if they just would have stuck to what I thought was the best part of the show, in having this character that has a proclivity for deadliness or violence or murder, has this brain that can interface perfectly with his teachers. Maybe there's instances that take place of conflict that happen within the school that makes him say, fuck, I need to know how to fight. I don't know how to fight. He goes to the teacher that knows combat and says like, I need to be prepared for this one instance. And then she just trains the shit out of them. Maybe he gets some lessons from the Yakuza girl. Maybe they get closer and it slowly develops into like, okay, I understand why you guys are so hell-bent on being with each other. That makes sense. Maybe there's something with Chika. Maybe there's more, whatever. But just the idea that the character interfaces with each level of this insane assassin world, because that's the best part of it in my opinion, is when you're learning about the teachers and their understanding. It's kind of like the Harry Potter, almost everyone's favorite part of the Harry Potter movies is when they're like actually doing magic within the school. Like it's interesting. And then maybe through the entire season, bit by bit, the main character starts to get kind of more clever about most things because he has to, because he's a rat. He's at the very bottom, so he has no choice but to become as skilled and as amazing as he absolutely can, because unlike everybody else, he's fighting a losing game, but he doesn't want to lose. Like he's a person who doesn't have any sort of like advancement. He has nothing, which is all the more reason for him to want to protect the small bit that he has, especially if he keeps getting more of it, which is a family. So you know how in the show he like unlocks the psychopath guy, and he actually like takes him to find the one person, and he finds him and that succeeds, but then he gets away or something. I don't really know what even happened to that thread. Anyways, point being, maybe the main guy who's judging this like psychotic murderer person sees that, hey, this guy actually can teach me a lot, even though he's psycho. He can make me survive in this fucking horrible world. So then maybe he you know, the one guy comes back to the school and maybe he says, I came back because of you, and maybe that's even creepy. Maybe it's like, fuck, he likes the main character, and that's gross. But anyways, maybe he starts to learn from him and all that stuff, and then maybe at the end, finally, like this weird thread about him like taking classes with his psycho comes back at the very, very end. You know how the ending is a cliffhanger ending where he's holding Chico's head, and then his friend comes up behind him, instead of him just freezing there and being like, I don't fucking know, I don't know nothing, what am I doing, oh my god, family. Instead of him being like the brain dead person that we got at episode 6 or something, instead for him to like pivot, like his whole brain to switch and to be like, sir, I avenged your son, can I be a part of your organization? In the back of his mind thinking, I don't want to be a part of his like corporation, but this is the best bet to succeed and be good in this moment. And maybe even Chika's like losing her mind, but this is another moment at the very end where that fucked up like psychopath teacher, his teaching actually worked about, no, calm down, observe your surroundings, feed into the other person's expectations and delusions, and then profit essentially from it. and then for maybe it to end on a moment where like the guy's deciding whether he's telling the truth or not, and then you could cut. You could still have your like surprising ending and not knowing what's going to happen, but instead the ending is again the one dude getting shot in the head, which you're like, why is that the weird mental pattern that happens where they arrive? I mean, maybe that's what it is. The shitty assassin principal lady, the sister of the principal. Maybe she phoned him and said like, hey, your kid's here, all that stuff. But even still, you could still MacGyver around that and say like, hey, I revenged your son's death. I wasn't a great friend with him, but I did it specifically so that I could join your organization. That way the guy would know like, okay, you want something. I understand. I'll do that. And then maybe even has to do some stuff in season 2 for this fucking guy that's, you know, that's conflict or something. But instead, none of that happens. Instead, we just get to see the guy who we actually at this point want to like, the guy who's like the punk rocker dude who helped him out a lot, who went out of his way, who cheated death, basically gets shot. Now, whether he's dead, I don't know. He dropped like a sack of potatoes. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't die. If he does die, to me, that's just such a shitty way for the series to go down, because to me, I think the best part about the series is when you actually get to unravel a character. When you take a character, and that dude was a great example about them doing something really well, because the dude who gets dropped, the spiky kind of punk rocker dude, he's a son of a bitch. He's constantly talking shit. He's constantly like belittling others. But then you find out his backstory, and you're like, okay, I kind of get it. You're like, even you're aware of the ways you're flawed. And then also he showed up to like support his friends. You know, and then his reward is getting shot in the head, or shot in the chest. I'm kind of just like, it doesn't do anything for me. Like, the reason why Game of Thrones was so crazy is because they made you want the characters to kind of things to work out, and you kind of accepted that there were so many other threads that even if one got plucked, you still had these overarching threads that you could bank on, aka Jon Snow or something, right? So it wasn't just making you feel like nothing mattered. But now that you see that this one character just gets offed, it makes it so that anytime they do a backstory drop, you're kind of like, they're just trying to win me over so they can kill him. I'm not gonna pay attention, or I'm gonna put up my guard. So then you don't get anything from people. Anyways, my last criticism, and this is to me like the antithesis of what I mean by them introducing like 15 versions of conflict for the sake of conflict's sake. Not for like, here's an interesting thing that will engage you, that will pull you in. A case in point, the episode where they say there's like, they're pumping gas within the school, and they're like, hey, if you don't figure out how to get past this, you're gonna die. Go. And the main guy kills it. And all that intelligence, that adaptation, gone. Fucking gone. We'll never see it again throughout the whole show, which to me is so frustrating. The main character, at the very end, he finally finds his like bully of a person. And then he has this like dawning realization that he never bothers to really explain, that like, hey, I'm not really all about killing Ronald Reagan anymore, because it means nothing. It's useless. It's pointless. All this stuff. That gets dumped. We were never aware that ever got dumped, but it finally got dumped. And he ends up like basically pretending to like worm tongue his friend, and then like throws a brick at him or something like that, and then like fucking runs away like a little baby, and then he starts getting his head beat in, and it's like, again, this is the perfect example of like conflict for conflict's sake, because guess how he resolves it? He gets lucky by there being a dog behind him, and he goes, and then the dog rips his fucking friend's face off, which we don't know he's dead, but anyways, rips his fucking friend's face off, and he's sitting there, and the main character, I have no confidence in that he's good at all. He just got lucky AF. Like, the guy basically killed himself in the end, which is super not like justifiable or interesting, especially if it all culminated in his friend getting murdered. And I don't know, to me it just like, it was the best example of the exact reason why I think the show was interesting is now gone. Like, the reason why the show is interesting is because this character has a proclivity for violence. He has a talent for these things. These people see this talent in him, and they're trying to foster it. By episode 7, he forgets everything. Everything goes to shit. Everything just dissolves into nothing. It's like that acid trip just ripped apart all of his sense. Don't do drugs, kids. I mean, you can have fun if you just in moderation. Anyways, but to me, that's the biggest issue there. Is like that moment to me was entirely luck, random as hell. His choices no longer make sense. Beforehand, you could map out a lot of his choices knowing his pain and broken nature and being able to find out the ways he was going to kind of interface with the world. Even his like precursor comments about the society and all of these things kind of led you down a thought process of knowing like the nihilistic part of things / the understandings of why what matters to him, where most of the things he's a nihilist and a nihilist like crazy, but then with his family or with his friends he's completely the opposite. He's kind of like, no, you're my like light in this fucking horrible world, so that's why I'm able to go to hell and back for you. And then there were moments like Chica, again, like Chica and the badass Ronin girl, to me, where I was just like, they made you guys so smart at the beginning, or like you were fucking badass, you were clever, you were like, you survived and you were survivors, and now you're just, I don't even know, like you're just a mess of a character, and I like them a lot. I'm sounding like an abusive, horrible, sorry. But like I really do like the characters. I think that's why I am so frustrated with the best way I could put it is the CW-ification of the show, which is here's a shit ton of romance that doesn't make sense. The characters are no longer acting in the right spirit for who they are. Here's a bunch of conflict that is conflict for the sake of conflict, not conflict that has meaning for your character to evolve and to become greater. At the end of the day, like that was one of the best parts of the, again, beginning episodes, is when he saves everybody in the test, like from poison. Like that was him and Chica. Like that was a moment to me that was pretty huge, where I think the Asian girl finally started being like, okay, no, this guy's good. This guy's pretty damn good. Maybe I shouldn't like look down on him so much. And that's a growing moment. And there should be more moments like that. But instead, the moments kind of got replaced by, oh no, what will happen next? Oh, he's doing stupid, irrational things. I wonder what the Asian girl is gonna feel about it when she hears about this. Or, oh my God, now they hate each other. And it's just like, what are we doing? Like we were dealing with some big boy, interesting concepts, and now we're back to high school drama that's not even interesting. It's like, it's the high school drama that you can find anywhere. It's not even the high school drama that's like, I saved you from a horrible instance, and actually it would make sense that now in a world where you couldn't bet on anybody, you can maybe bet on me. Like that makes sense. The whole Chico thing, it kind of is like an obligation for her in a way, and also for him in a way. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have any more time to talk about this, even though I would love to. I like this show so much. Despite all of my criticisms, which I'm sorry there was so many, I just thought it was, to me, it was one of those weird moments where I thought, what happened? Like it was fucking on cloud nine. I hope to the bottom of my heart that if Netflix does reboot this, that they come back to that in season 2. Yeah, they got to tie up a lot of loose ends, and maybe I got to read the book if there is a book, or a comic book if there is a comic book. And maybe they handle it better about like, no, the character is gonna, like, it makes more sense, Grin, if you actually understand the reasons why. They explain his like fucked up mentality and how he never really had a family or a partner, and how he's kind of split. And it's like, okay, at least then at least they gave you moments to really unravel that, even though I still don't think that's a good story of just conflict's sake. Because you get lost in the like, oh my God, everything is so crazy and like not nonsense. And I think all of the conflicts were good if you were just to give them time to actually develop. Now, like I think the principal one was good. I like all of them so much. So I hope if they do make a season 2 for Netflix, I really hope they amplify the thing to me that was the most wonderful part of the series, which was the world building, the school, and the character having a proclivity for deadly assassin like stuff. And to go into the way that character constantly improves and grows and becomes better, because he stops doing that around halfway around the 7th episode, and then he's just surrounded by conflict and no real understanding of how he got better at it. And I don't know. To me, I think there's so many shows that do the romance thing like the fucking quadruple conflict within relationships thing. I think there's so many people that do like the, oh my god, there's this bad entity, but then there's this other mobster that's looking at you, and if you make one small mistake, they're gonna come eat you, and it's just kind of like conflict. So as soon as you get rid of this conflict, don't worry, we have this conflict ready to go. So it just feels like you're like, man, I can't even catch a break. You're like, fuck. And so to me, there's so many shows that do those kinds of things. I was really enjoying the show at the most when it was just doing the world building and the character development and the character growth, frankly. I feel like so many shows don't do that, and the classroom setting, the school setting is literally the perfect place to do that. So if Netflix sees this, and if you guys agree with me, I hope season 2 has more of the things that I enjoyed the most. But if maybe I'm not right, maybe so many people like the other aspects of the show. Maybe people love the dynamic of weird relationships and the main character making silly choices out of nowhere. I don't know. Hopefully you guys do enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much for listening to me ramble. I always talk about the shows I watch, and I try to look into when there's going to be a season 2. Unfortunately, there is no confirmed news that there's going to be a season 2. But with this show existing on Netflix and how unique it is, I could see it being easily greenlit for a season 2 within the future, frankly. But I've been wrong before, unfortunately. And yeah, the last thing I wanted to say was going to be about why, potentially why, this show, I didn't hear much about it. And I think it's because of the last 4 episodes, maybe even 3 episodes, maybe even 2 episodes. Because I feel like a lot of stuff was passable. Like a lot of stuff was really, like the beginning, holy shit. But I could, like, if you end on a messy cliffhanger, like weird note, I wouldn't even say it's a high note, bad note. If you end on this weird, messy note that kind of has no sense, it makes people feel kind of like, especially, man, I'm not sure. I think, honestly, if I could put it down to one thing, I think it's the conflict within the relationships. I think it's like the main character two-timing these people in a weird way, accidentally, with one of the girls being like so psychotic, ready to watch her best friend die, who is willing to do so much for her, who has done so much for her. Yes, she has like a, what do you call it, personality, whatever it would be called. But that doesn't mean it's any less satisfying when it happens, when the friend basically backstabs her friend to like the 10th degree, you know? So I feel like ending on the way that it did, I could see people being like, oh yeah, it's a good show. You know, like it has a 7.6 and a 64% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think it would have been up there for like a fucking 80, a 90 if they just were to tune up the last 4 episodes, because they introduced way too much conflict, and I think nobody wants to see a quintuple love triangle again. And at least if they do, make it make sense and unravel in a way that is interesting, not just messy, I guess. Anyways, hopefully you guys do enjoy the rest of your day. That's why I think maybe that I haven't heard too much about the show, but I definitely think it's worth watching, especially the first 6 episodes. I hope Netflix picks it up for season 2, because it is unique, and I really liked it. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I just like the more grown-up, intense, school-like perception of the world. And also, I don't know, I just like the John Wick building of a world that is a little more cruel and crazy. And yeah. Anyways, I also like the art style and that stuff. Anyways, I will keep talking forever. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully, I can talk your ear off about other TV shows I watch. I watch a lot of anime, so forgive me if you don't like that. But yeah, let me know if there is ever a season 2 announcement. I'll make a video probably about it, talking about it, hyped out of my mind. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully, you enjoy the rest of your day, and let me know what you guys think about the last 3 to 4 episodes. Let me know. Maybe I'm way off, and maybe you loved it. But for me, I've seen all that stuff to death, and it felt a little like it lost the soul that made this series so powerful. Anyway, thank you so much. Sorry if you disagree with me, and goodbye.